everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Amy, a special education teacher, a voracious reader, and today I'm here to share my January 2025 TBR with you all. And I don't have too many books to talk about, and that's not because I don't have a TBR or I don't want to read that much. It's more like I just don't know how things are going to pan out. So let's just jump in so I can explain that. The first book that I'm going to definitely be reading is Every Gift a Curse by Caroline O'Donoghue, and this is the last book in the Gifts trilogy, and I have really enjoyed this series. I got this book, I don't even know how long ago. I definitely ordered it when it came out, and I just never got around to it, and when I did pick it up to read it, I found that it was set in wintertime, close to the holiday season, and then I was like, oh, I'll just put it off until I can read it in wintertime because I do like to read seasonally as much as possible. I remember a ton about the first two books, and I really enjoyed them. In the series, we are following our main character, Maeve, and she is a teenage girl. She goes to an all-girls Catholic high school in Ireland, and she's a complex character. What I appreciate about Maeve is that she's definitely not a perfect character at all. She has a lot of insecurities, and sometimes the way she thinks about things or handles certain situations isn't always the best, but you still really root for Maeve. You still find her, I do at least, find her very likable. I'm not going to talk too much about the last one because obviously I don't want to spoil the series. Let's just talk about the main points of this. In the first book, and that book is called All Our Hidden Gifts, and that is where we have Maeve. She attends a Catholic school. She is having some difficult interpersonal relationships with peers, and her best friend Lily is now missing. They had a falling out, and you discover why they had the falling out, and you discover along the way what has led to this disappearance. Maeve realizing that she may have played a part in that, and she is determined to find her friend and get her back. And along the way, she has to make other friends, and she may end up meeting a potential love interest in this book. We just see how she has to interact with her family and kind of get through school, but also discover that she has some gifts, some magical abilities, and she's going to have to go up against a very powerful entity. She's also going to have to deal with other foes. There are some Christian fundamentalist groups going on in this book that she's also having to sort of take on. So there's like a lot in these books, and I felt like the commentary is really great. I love the representation in the series. I really just liked a lot of what this series has to say about sort of how we view each other. It has a lot to say about religion, both in the first book but throughout the series. And it's not bashing religion, but it is talking about when people use religion in toxic ways. There's a lot of great commentary on that, and there's just a lot of, it's a very modern trilogy. It's great for modern teens. It's dealing with real life issues, and it takes place in Ireland, and I thought that was very cool. So I'm really looking forward to finishing this up, and I hope that it has a really good ending. The next book that I'm hoping to read in January is The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon. So after I finished reading My Darling Girl and fell in love with Jennifer McMahon, I kind of put it out there in my social media and to my friends and was just talking about My Darling Girl. And one of my other friends was like, oh, then you should really read The Winter People. She highly recommended that one. And then she had another title that I should check out too. And I felt like, well, we're in winter time now anyway, so let's check out The Winter People. And all I know about this horror novel is that it deals with folk horror, and we get to read it. I believe it is a dual timeline story, and we get to read someone from the past diary. And I always love books that include diary entries. Those are right up my alley. So I'm really excited about that aspect. And it seems like it's going to deal with grief. And I think it's also dealing with maybe like a cursed land. I'm not really sure. But it just sounds like there's some mysterious things going on and some disappearances and just all kinds of weird, wacky things. So I definitely want to check it out. It takes place in Vermont, and I just think I'm going to really enjoy it. So I'm really looking forward to reading Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. I had actually taken this out of the library before with the intention of reading it and then got busy with other books, and then I had to return it unread. But it was on a lot of people's best of the year for 2024 videos that I saw, and I was like, oh, I definitely just need to read this book. Although I am doing a 2025 challenge of reading what I own, I'm doing it in a way where I'll read a book I own, like the book I just showed you at the beginning, Every Gift a Curse, and then I can read a library book after that. The library book came in so fast, I thought I was going to have to wait on this hold, so I really need to read the first book very quickly so I can get to this one before I have to return it. But it sounds really great. It's told from the perspective of a young child, so that should be interesting. And she lives with her parents, but there's also someone else that lives in the house too that's hanging around her called Other Mommy. And Other Mommy used to just come out at night, but now Other Mommy is coming out an awful lot and also asking her the same question over and over again. Can I come into your heart? I can't wait to figure out what is the deal with this other mommy? What is going to happen to this child, to the parents in this house? Because it sounds like a cool haunted house kind of story, but also psychological horror because I mean, is this just a figment of the girl's imagination, or is there really like this supernatural entity living in their house? And I think it sounds really cool, so I'm definitely going to get to this one in January. This is where it gets a little bit complicated because I have a book that I pre-ordered that's coming out this month that I'm hoping to read, but it doesn't come out till January 14th, and I ordered it into my local bookstore, so I don't know if it will be ready for me to pick up on January 14th or if I'll have to wait a few days till it gets to the store. So I'm not really sure how any of that works, but that's one that I want to prioritize if it does come in at a reasonable amount of time, and that is JKLOL by Patrick Barb. And I know very little about this book other than the fact that as soon as I saw the cover and read the title, I knew I had to read the book, even with knowing I knew absolutely nothing about this book other than what I saw. And I was like, just based on the title and cover alone, I want to read this book. I don't care what it's about. But then I got to read what it's about, and that also sounds really cool. It is a horror novella. It seems very unlike the other things that I've been reading lately. It seems like there's going to be a lot of commentary about social media, internet culture, trolls on the internet, because we are following a main character who is an internet troll. So that's going to be really interesting to follow a character who's not a good person, but also I might have this completely wrong. I could be completely confused on this. But it seems like a lot of the things that he's trolling about on the computer, these things like start to maybe happen offline. The words that he must be typing or saying or whatever, it's now making things happen in the real world that are bad. And I know that he ends up having to like go on the run. So I don't really know how any of this is working out, but I just find overall it's an interesting premise that our main character is an internet troll, and I want to know what happens to him because I'm kind of wondering, like, will this be a redemption story, even though it's horror and you don't usually see that? Or is it going to be like a punishment story? I don't know, but I want to find out. The last book that I want to read, well, this isn't the last book I want to read, actually. So let me back up from that. The last book I want to read this month for my 2025 challenge, Read What You Own, is The 13th Child by Erin A. Craig. Still have one other book that is also a pre-order, but I pre-ordered it into the library. I have no way of knowing if that hold is going to be ready. I don't know like what number I am in line. So I could be 1 or I could be 100, because the pre-order book into the library is the new Grady Hendrix book, which I believe is called Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. And I've already been hearing like a lot of big buzz around this. So it's probably going to be a popular one. That's why I sort of chose this one, even though it's a big book, because the other one might not come in. So I might be able to just focus on this, and I might have to put off the other one till February or March, whenever it comes into the library. But I've been really meaning to read this one. I'm in the mood for this one. I think I'm just on an Aaron A. Craig kick because I was rereading House of Salt and Sorrows and then House of Roots and Ruin, and I just enjoyed them so much. They are just so unhinged and weird YA, and this one sounds great too. So this one I found it's a little hard to explain, and this has been a long day. I'm recording this at 5 o'clock at night, and I have been up since 5 a.m. and on the road at 6 to get to work by 7 and have worked all day. So I worry that I'm not going to come across coherently. So I actually am just going to read to you what it says in the inside cover for this book. So we have Hazel Trepis has always known she wasn't like her siblings. A 13th child promised to one of the gods, she spends her childhood waiting for her benefactor, Merrick, the god of death, to arrive and take her away. When he does, he lays out exactly what he's planned for Hazel's future. She will become a great and celebrated healer. To aid her endeavors, Merrick blesses Hazel with a gift, the ability to instantly deduce the exact cure needed to treat the sick, but all gifts come with a price. Hazel can see when death is claimed a patient and is tasked with ending their suffering permanently. Haunted by the ghosts of those she's killed, Hazel longs to run, but destiny brings her to the royal court, where she meets Leopold, a rakish prince with a disdain for everyone and everything. And that's where Hazel faces her biggest dilemma yet. Should she save the life of a king marked to die? Hazel knows what she is meant to do and what her heart is urging her toward, but what will happen if she goes against the will of death himself? From the astonishing mind of Aaron A. Craig comes the breathtaking fairy tale retelling readers had been waiting for. What does a life well lived mean, and how do we justify the impossible choices we make for the ones we love? Oh, so I wonder if there's a fairy tale called The 13th Child. And if it's not, what fairy tale is this retelling? I'll have to look into that. So that's cool. But yeah, this has me just wondering a lot of things. First of all, I love that there is an actual god of death in this book. That's already very cool to me. But I also like stories that focus on magic having a price. I really like that theme a lot. It's one of the reasons why I really like that show Once Upon a Time. But I feel like this is going to be another one of Aaron A. Craig's great specialties of having a romance in the book, and I really enjoy those as well. So I think this is the perfect time of year for a dark romance. I think it's going to be great. So that is all I know for now. It is a very short TBR. And I wanted to keep it short because I don't want to put too much pressure on myself. I don't want to task myself with, oh, I'm going to read this many books in a month and I'm going to listen to this many audiobooks in a month to try to crank it out. I want to just put on my TBR the books that I really am intending to read in that month if things work out, because there's some complex issues with timing if books will be ready for me to read them this month. So that's why this one's a little bit off. But I don't want to put pressure on myself to make these big lists and then feel bad if I don't read all of them on the list, versus, okay, if I just select a small group of books that I know I can reasonably read in a month and then I read more than that, I'm going to feel good about that. So that's how I'm going to handle my TBRs moving forward, where I will just pick a selection of maybe 4 or 5 that I know I can reasonably read in a month, and then share those with you. And then the wrap-ups will probably have some surprise ones along the way as well. So it also keeps it more fun and exciting for me, because I feel like a concern that I have is that if I do a rigid TBR, after a while, that's going to feel like a grind. I'm going to feel sort of beholden to these lists. It's going to take some of the fun and spontaneity out for me, because now having a YouTube channel, picking out books is a somewhat different experience in a way than how I was doing it before I started the channel. And I will talk about that in a future video. So I just want to make sure that I'm doing this in a sustainable way that still makes it fun for me every month when I'm discovering what I want to read, instead of just being like, oh, I committed to this list and I have to read this list even if halfway through the month I don't feel that way or something doesn't work out or whatever. Reading should always be fun. It shouldn't feel like stress or pressure. There's way too much of that in our everyday lives, and I personally read for the escapism and just for the joy and simple pleasure of it being my all-time favorite hobby. So why would I want to make that feel more like work? I would not. And I don't recommend that you do that either. So please let me know what you plan on reading in January, or if any of those books sound interesting to you, and I will see you next time. Thanks.